there is no downside in looking at ZAP. There's a lot of downside in not looking at ZAP. At the very least, take an hour, get a demo, your world is going to change. There was absolutely no downside about bringing a tool in-house and working with it to understand what's going on in the industry and generate some ideas and be able to talk intelligently about it. Because it's only a matter of time before management comes to you and say, what are you doing about? Better have an answer.
Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of ZAPTALK. Great to have everyone back. And as always, we're joined by the one and only Alex Zapp. Hey, Alex.
Hey, guys. Great to see you all. Amazing. The best people in the room today.
And speaking of amazing people, we have Alex Shop joining us. Welcome, Alex.
Hey, how's it going, Joe?
Great to see you. We have a lot to talk about today. We have some spicy takes, so people definitely want to stick around. Before we get into, though, Alex, maybe a little more about yourself. We always love to know, like, how you met Alex Zapp and then how you got maybe into testing.
Oh, all right. So let me hit that first. How did I meet Alex? So a gazillion years ago, or it feels like a gazillion years ago, there were a set of software testing tools that really dominated the market, owned by a company called Mercury Interactive. Mercury was subsequently acquired by HP, and industry evolves and whatever. And Alex Z and the Zapster, we'll call him the Zapster. So Alex Zapp and I both led partner firms that worked very strategically with both Mercury and HP and a number of instantiations. Little bit of trivia. In those days when we were both highly engaged in that partner community, it wasn't unusual for people to email each of us, get our emails mixed up.
All right.
So every once in a while, we would end up going through our inboxes and forwarding it to each other. You know, it's a classic problem. Not a lot of people have a lot of Alexes in their contact list. So I think they just type in Alex and they think the machine's going to be smart enough to do whatever. And it just happens. So how did I get into testing? That is an excellent question, really. My bachelor's is in electrical engineering and minors in math and computer science. You know, you don't get much geekier than that. I did my master's work. So my bachelor's is real geeky. My master's work is in systems engineering. And with that kind of background, I ended up building a lot of systems, right? You start with smaller ones, you get to multi-billion-dollar projects, and testing was always very critical. And one of the hardest things to test to this day is software, right? So you're always looking for tools to make you more productive, make you more effective, make you more efficient, you know, all those kind of things, right? So it just happened. And when, you know, the Mercury tools came along, they were the dominant force, not only for functional testing, but also for performance testing. And a little bit of a plug, in the 90s, late 90s, I was working with one of the world's largest telcos, helping them move from being a traditional telecommunications system to get into the data world. And one of the things we quickly discovered was that in that space, high volume transactions is tens of thousands per second, right? And what we ended up doing is, what really impressed me around the Mercury tools I was just talking about was that they had the only tool out there that could handle large volumes. They couldn't handle that volume. So what we ended up doing is we put a pile of them in parallel, but it was the only way we could test. And then the functional testing tools that came along with it and different types of business components and all, you know, it just kind of happens when you're running a large scale system and a large scale project. You got to test this stuff before you roll it out. You don't want your users doing the testing.
Absolutely. And Alex, that's what I love about your product. It handles more than just functional testing. I believe it also does performance testing as well now. Is that correct?
Of course. I've been closely working in Mercury with performance with Load Runner team. Yep. Some of the folks we have a long history together.
The tech world is shifting. AI is rising, and legacy skills are losing ground fast. You don't have to get left behind. ZAPTEST's Record and Playback Reinvented gives you the edge to stay ahead. Real AI automation, real conversations, real career momentum, all coming to Seattle this fall. ZAP Party Seattle, October 3rd. Stay tuned for your invite and registration link.
So a lot has changed. You mentioned consulting, certifications, being on the road. How much has AI changed this? Has AI changed these aspects of maybe what people associate with being into software as well?
The short answer is yes. The longer answer, most people have started using the letters AI starting in the fall of 2022. But the reality is AI as we know it today really started in the 1950s and it's been around for a real long time. I can admit I have gray hair and not much of it anymore. I worked my first AI use case in 1992.
Wow. Doing what?
I was with the intelligence community at the time, and we were working with what is still a use case we're still trying to solve today. Basically taking log files, from different sorts of events, different sources, and trying to correlate them and trying to create predictive analytics around where some incidents might happen. This was all around cybersecurity at the time. This wasn't on the like the pure intelligence side. I can say it now, but I couldn't say it then. NSA has two missions. They have an offensive mission and they have a defensive mission. I was on the defense side. And in 1980, when the ARPANET moved over to the Internet Protocol and created the Internet, a little bit of history there. NSA, in cooperation with private industry, set up a public-private partnership to look at security protocols and, how do you defend this thing, right? And out of it came SSL, TLSP.
Wow.
A lot of things that we use today, and they came out of that effort. And one of the efforts was, let's look at all this data and try to predict, bad behavior, or at least remove what isn't bad behavior so we have less analysis. And we're still struggling with that. But kind of back to your question, if you look at over time, taking it purely from the AI standpoint, AI has played an increasing role over the years, just not on the forefront of code generation, right? That's always been a big one. How do you automate code, right? And a lot of AI tools have been used by major vendors for quite some time, just not as big as it is now, but also code analysis, right? We have been struggling with really two things when you think about it, right? Somebody wants a microphone, a magic microphone that you can talk into and describe a system, and it generates the code. And somebody else wants to go through that code and make sure it's going to function properly, right? And then I guess you could say there's a third. You have your non-functional requirements like security. You want to make sure that there's no malicious code in there or any gotchas, especially on a mission critical system. And that just keeps on coming. But, now that ChatGPT became on everybody's lips in October of 2022, it's getting a lot more attention, which is really crafting an interesting problem. How do you separate the wheat from the chaff? How do you know what's real and what is snake oil?
How do you know? Because you do know, and you actually saw a demo. I was on a call with Zap, and you totally bought into it. Alex sometimes comes off as a showman. Hey, the greatest show on earth. And yet you know it AI, and you were totally bought in. I was kind of surprised.
Well, thank you. First and foremost, I do a lot of advising and consulting around AI governance. And I tell anybody that you talk to a vendor, they are required to use the letters AI within the first 30 to 45 seconds. It either affects their commission or they get fired or something because they all do it, right? So instantly ask them 3 questions. What can you do now that you couldn't do before AI? What can you do better now that you couldn't do before AI? And what are you going to do for me in the next 12, 18, 24 months? What's on your roadmap? 80% of the time, if they can answer that, there really is some AI within within what they're doing. The other ones are like, I'm gonna. I was just told to say these letters. I'm being buzzword compliant, right? So you have to start digging into that. You also need to understand AI is not vanilla. Now, with that, there's not a taxonomy, a uniform recognized taxonomy. So you got to understand what kind of tools they're using and what the strengths and weaknesses are. For example, ChatGPT is known for crafting hallucinations and making up stuff, right? Okay, well, that's because it's a large language model, and large language models do that, right? There's also different types of trainings. There's supervised training, there's unsupervised training, right? So each of these algorithms have their own strengths and weaknesses. And by knowing what the algorithms are, what they do when they don't do, what their strengths and weaknesses are, you can detect that. The other thing, which a lot of free consulting here, what people don't realize is all the issues in AI. Okay, I'm not going to say all, because there's some other ones that smaller percentage. The vast majority of the issues you deal with in AI is related to the data you use to train the model and how you trained it. So kind of ask the questions about how you got here, then ask the questions about how it was trained, where you got your training data, what's your process for updating as you find your gotchas. And by getting that, you start to understand who's really thought about the problem and actually worked with it.
Love it. So I guess when people think of AI, they only think to me of generative AI. So are you saying there's other kinds of AI that are coming up or that have been in use all the time, and that people aren't aware that it's they when they associate AI, they just think generative AI, and that's why maybe they think there's hype around it or they can't do something?
Oh, yeah. Think about it for a second, right? We talk about the AI that's used in autonomous vehicles. I can bet you that there's very little application there that's generative AI. Right. When's the last time you walked into a car and you want to drive the car, right? You want the car to be more efficient. You want some auto navigating. You're not asking it, hey, Mr. Car, can you generate me a picture of a duck with 3 legs?
Right.
This year. Next year it may change.
In a future model, right? And then it would probably be a bit more about, can you generate a rubber ducky for me, right? Because that's more of a thing, right? So generative AI just does that, right? You put some stuff in and you request something out. You're not asking it to craft associations. You're not asking it to do detection. You're not asking it to do a lot of things, right? So different types of things do different stuff. For example, everybody has a smartphone, right? AI, in the pure sense, has been in that smartphone forever. You talk into a smartphone and ask it, do a search for me. Hey, Siri, right? Or, hey, you kind of walk down your favorite. There are actually multiple algorithms and instances in there because you got to translate the voice to something useful. There's then has to be another application to actually perform the task. There's probably multiple. And then once it's performed the task, something else has to then play it back to you in some form of audio that you as a human can receive. Right? So it's very, very prevalent. Everybody who's been using email since the 90s is using an AI application. It's called spam. Right? The spam filters are AI based. They're just not as sexy as, hey, AI, can you do this search for me? Can you recommend a restaurant for me? Right? It's more mainstream, but it's not going to help you with generating your code or correcting your code.
Totally. So Alex, you were into AI before it became sexy as well, I guess. So what got you into AI? It's saw the promise, because you've been a consultant as well, and you probably saw a lot of things before others have seen it, I assume.
I'm a kind of survivor, if you will, right? So, and my mission to deliver more in the shortest period of time. Cheaper, better, and faster, right? So, consulting, I started my career as an advanced consultant. In the Mercury day, why we made it different, the guy with Russian accent was made it different out of blue, because I created model that replicated the Israeli special forces teams on the selecting, training, and delivering the engagements like we used to do it in Army. I applied to the consulting force. So with that said, with this advanced delivery, we helped Mercury to drive it through the competition. And we've been one of the, I want to say, strong partner that been leading them to the exit to HP. And this is why we had a meeting with Anna. We invited on a last episode, and we told the story about me.
She's awesome.
Into them, right? She's legendary, amazing woman. And this is basically how I moved from consulting, pure consulting, to started to look into the software. What else can I do? I always proven my work all my career. It's not because I'm playing golf. I was a part of the fraternity somewhere, right? It's just because I do better than my competitors do. And today with AI, we were transitioning, right? Today with AI, it replaces the human labor. So it adds the value in the points where earlier it was a fully human driven. Because if you look at us, if we get to the layman terms, right, without the corporate bravado, all we did all our career for over 20 years, 20, 30 years, we were humanized robots that were translating the textual requirements into the machine code on different levels and different missions. Make sense? So today AI does it for us 100 times faster. So you don't need humanoid robots anymore. You just need the architect that can orchestrate those robots, bots together. My point of view, I used to compare it to when I explain my ZAPTEST.AI technology, one-click process, and all this advanced functionality that you've seen. I showed you last week, right? How it's worked, where we're at today. And every week we're moving progressive. We skyrocketing and we're leapfrogging farther and farther. As Anna said, it's too good to be true for people to believe, right? Unfortunately, I don't have a marketing budget that will be able to overshot everything yet. But the very serious organizations helping me out with that, and soon it's going to be much larger than it is. So it's done everything automatically in the very fast pace. In a matter of minutes, it produces the information, automates, and prepare for execution so many artifacts that would take humans in the old school processes thousands of man hours. Make sense? So productivity is enormous. And we, as a nation, it's like it used to be Cold War, and I grew up in Soviet Union, so I feel it the better than anyone, right? So I was an American kid that growing up in the different camp, right? So, and it's when I was 18, I was able to take the situation alone by myself, but I never left to deal with a similar situation. I was an AI first guy evangelist on a mission to help my nation to be first, to be stronger, make sense, to produce faster. Yeah. So this is where I see AI has enormous potential for us to provide, to move much faster than humanity ever comprehended. And we're in this transition right now. It's a revolution. It's an AI revolution. Like any revolution, you break in the stereotype. We have to be comfortable living in the change.
Still wasting millions babysitting test scripts? Your automation isn't working. You know it. We know it. ZAPTEST flips the script. Literally, one AI, one script, full stack automation across web, mobile, API, test plus RPA, even ancient desktop systems. No code, no maintenance, no more DevOps therapy sessions. This isn't just another tool. It's your AI-powered, humanless automation force.
I was going to say, let me build on a couple of essential points there. So we know a bunch of stuff about technology adoption. First and foremost, work never goes away. It transfers to machines.
Still, because people say it's not happening this time.
Yeah, whatever. It hundreds of years of human history say that's exactly what happens.
Right.
Right. And economists will tell you productivity is a measurement of transferring. Well, it's 2/3. It's 2/3 transferring the work to machine, and it's 1/3 increasing the workforce. All right. So work transfers to the machine. What that means is often different. Okay. This evolution that we're seeing with AI is unique, is because it's the first time at a wide scale that it impacted white collar workers more than it did blue collar workers. Right.
Yeah, before the robots is out. That's the first way.
And by the way, I don't know if you know, the word robot actually comes from a Polish term, roboto, for cheap labor.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can look
I
at
understand Polish a little bit. It's close to Slavic language. Yeah, but Rabota in Russian and Slavic languages, it's a work.
There you go. There you
Okay.
go. Right. Well, here's another one for you. And this was made famous in a Star Trek movie. Right. The word sabotage actually comes from Japanese workers throwing their wooden shoes called sabots into machines because they were afraid of losing their jobs. That's where we get the word sabotage from.
Very
Right.
cool.
And if anybody wants to write in, remember, you can't argue with Star Trek. That is
That's so true.
not allowed. But the point is, as these things happen, we know the work never goes away. It transfers to the machine. Humans don't ever totally go away, right? We move on to more strategic things. And we're also there because in Alex's example, there's no way you're going to build an architect who has never written code or at least some percentage, right? So there's still people that are going to be checking code. They're going to be doing the fine tuning. They're going to be doing some of the fine manual labor around code development and the like that the machines can't, right? So this never goes away. It just changes. Another example for you. I'm going to give you two examples. One of my favorites. If Henry Ford, when he was looking at building this thing called a car, if he walked around and asked people what they wanted and what they projected, they would have complained about caring for the horse and they wanted to go fast enough. Innovation took him into leveraging the practices out of the Chicago stockyards so he could build machines at a reasonable price that could achieve those goals. If he had listened purely to the current users at the time, we would have gotten bigger horses on low fiber diets. Right? Right? That's what's very important to understand. The other thing that's very important to understand is with all this evolution, before the Industrial Revolution, the United States, I forget the exact numbers, had somewhere around 15 million people in it. And there was all these complaints with the Industrial Revolution that, people would be without jobs. People were going to starve. All this other stuff was being claimed because of the Industrial Revolution. We are now 335 million people with one of the lowest unemployment rates ever. We have scaled from 15 million to 23 times that. Well, 22 times that, right? Without having people losing jobs or actually having to cull out the population, right? So even if these disruptions occur, because we're putting more people on more strategic activities, and we're finding new work, because of all this, we're going to see expansion. The difference is this is going to predominantly hit the white collar worker, not the blue collar worker.
I like to compare what we used to do for 20 years as a motorized rickshaws. We used to build a motorized bicycle for manual workers. Like I'm a tooler, right? I build a career on building the tool. From being a consultant, I design a tool that helps people manually to provide write the automation to produce the automated processes and what's not, right? What we do with ZAPTEST.AI, I like to call it the supersonic jet. So I'm explaining to managers and the leaders, I'm saying, guys, you had a bunch of the bottom manual automators. And right now, instead of having 100 automators, I given you a supersonic jet that requires 2 automation architects. This is the crew in the pilot cabin, right? So I agree with you that we're gonna shift, and I encourage everyone not just to sit and wait, but brush their AI friendly skills, prompt engineering, adapt all the AI, start shifting their skill set to the mass production sort of, right? Instead of learning how to write the Python code, that's also useful just yet. But focus more on the web engineering and the prompt engineering to actually be subject matter expert in their areas of expertise and get used to ride the dragon. I'm saying we're not fighting with the dragon or Game of Thrones, right? But we're riding the dragon because we cannot be smarter than that. We cannot be faster than that. We just need to learn how to live with that and use it to our advantage. Make sense? So, no, I mean, I'm just saying that's definitely the consulting industry and automation space in our realm will be disrupted, and it will be shifted. And instead of writing one single line of code, consultants will need to put the mega prompts that with the one kick, seriously, be able to return the automation worth of the 2,000 hours of work for one or few people, make sense, in the one kick. So we're still going to be seeing people that can produce automation, but in a different ways, employing the smart technologies that help them to do so.
Let me build upon your analogy there for a second, right? Because you said instead of needing 5 or 10 automation engineers, test engineers, you only need 2. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to look around and go, what can I do with those other resources I just freed up? I don't know an organization that doesn't have a list of work they can't get to. Right? Think about it. Every CIO, every business unit, everyone has applications they want developed. They want modifications that need to be made. They have vulnerabilities to be patched. They have work to do. Right? So we're not going to, the needs are not going to go away. They're just going to shift. And to your point, if you look at the jobs report or the projections that were put out, I think it was by the Federal Reserve on the future of the economy, it actually talked about for the first time ever, we've seen growth, increased demand for like English majors to help write prompts.
So, Alex, if that's true, why do we always hear about layoffs? Like Microsoft, Google got rid of AI, got rid of people, and they say because of AI, and also Facebook, if they have other areas they could work in.
So there's a couple factors at play here. First of all, these changes don't always happen instantaneously, right? We also see when somebody's laid off here, they get picked up over here. But where you pick up isn't necessarily reported, right? So there's a lot of dynamics there. So there's a lag around it. There's also, we hear about the layoffs. We don't necessarily hear about the hiring. As a matter of fact, I think in the past 2 days, I've gotten probably a half dozen notices for people that are hiring, asking if I know anybody, right? So while you hear about this, this does happen. The other thing is there's a lot of other factors going on, especially, big companies and all. One thing is organizations tend not to let people go until they have, for lack of a better term, a cover story, right? There's other things that could be going on. We have a lot of geopolitical uncertainty right now. We have a lot of uncertainty around tariffs and other dynamics. which have long been reported, and I've heard from clients, it's causing organizations to hold off on reduction in force, but also holding off on hiring. Right. So these transition times tend to be a little funky, for lack of a better word. You also run into skill mixes, because just because you have somebody doing testing doesn't mean you can automatically turn that person into a developer.
Alex, I'm not talking about how those people will find a further careers. Definitely, I mean, I wish everyone well. I wish everybody I know and working with our technology and coming in our industry all the best. I mean, I don't have any bad intentions, if you will, right? But I tend to say the truth, what I know. I mean, my privilege in the market that I basically have opportunity to speak freely here than some of my colleagues, even the CIOs of my competitive technology that we compete on the market, right? I can be less corporate oriented, let's put it this way, right? That gives me more advantage edge, if you would. So I tell you, I'm gonna tell how I historically see that. So historically, all the load was on the coders. So if the manager had the budget, they would spend this budget to hire automators rather than protect the SMEs that possess the knowledge of the application of the subject matter expert, right? So that was impacting the quality of automation in general, because you have less people that know what needs to be automated and more people could craft the code to speed up the productivity. Right now, with what I'm bringing to the market, all the managers and the teams of the companies can focus more on the subject matter expertise. So it's not just helps them to drive automation faster, because it will be more precise if it's driven by SMEs from soup to nuts, if you will, right? But also give opportunity to spend budget toward permanent teams, people that been with the company the longest, that possess knowledge of the application, all the details of the business logic of those applications. Those are the valuable resources for any company. You and I, we've been in our career to the most mission-critical gigs of the Fortune 500 companies. I possess so much information in my experience. I've seen all these loopholes that other people had not. Why? Because you physically cannot be in every Fortune 500 company war rooms, and I have. This is why I spent the 10 years on the road, repacking and moving on like a special ops operative, right? And I have this knowledge that I implement today in my software that tells the truth to the industry, that helps without any corporate dance to deliver in the most mission-critical fashion. Make sense? And what I'm doing into the market right now with ZAPTEST, shift of culture. Today, we finally, I call it record and playback reinvented, because we finally, in 20 years, able to give to the market what market eventually was expected from automated tools, where I can give it to my business analysts, my manual testers, and this lady without coding experience, for example, be able to drive it from beginning through the whole scenario to the mass execution with the analysis report as is.
Yeah, I think you hit upon something very critical there. One of the things that happens with any form of automation, because you're transferring a lot of that work to the machine, is it allows the human to better understand the business or the mission or the process, right? And sometimes that's the higher order function. Specifically at testing, I remember a few years ago, a large financial services firm, long-term client, they saw a lot of demand coming in, and we used automation to actually RPA, robotic process automation, a kind of form of AI, to increase productivity of the team. and we achieved a 47% increase. Good news, bad news. Great results. Bad news is management comes back and says, oh, then you don't need as many people on your team. Now, the reality, they were trying to figure out how to make their team more effective to hit increased demand. Management had them cut some resources. So in 6 months, they had to go and hire some people. It's one of those knucklehead things you hear and see all the time. But really, the point of the story is when they had to make those cuts and they had to figure out who to keep and who to let go. The folks they kept were the folks that understand the applications. They understood the purpose of the role, right? The purpose of the role in testing is not to find errors, but it's to find things that don't align with the business and the requirements, right? If somebody didn't code something in a certain sexy way, if it works and it's not going to get in the way, it's not going to cause a maintenance problem, that is not as much of a concern as uncovering a requirement that was never documented.
Absolutely agree with you. I can tell you even more. I see fusion in the future, in the near future. Fusion of two disciplines, testing and RPA in the one software automation industry discipline.
Oh, absolutely. They're all coming together.
I was one of the first. I was a part of the Gartner Tech CXO team, and I spoke with the analysts enormous time, and I was always advocating. I said, listen, you guys are very advanced analysts. People know you. They trust your opinion. I'm a big fan of Gartner. I love them. And you have to take the mission to tell the industry the future, as you always do. They told me the world is not ready for that. And you, if you won't have enough budget to deliver this message. But I can tell you, humanity moves based on the crisis. Make sense? We're facing the crisis. It's not only me. We had Anna last time, and she's all in the investing community and all the decision makers, right? And I'm talking from, always to the executives because the velocity of the technology appeals to this level of decision making. So, board of directors adjusting the budget to AI productivity because it's not measurable completely. They take in, let's say, ballpark 20-30%. That it all goes down to the budget cuts and productivity increase. So basically, conversation goes to the C-level directors and the other, right? Down the stream. Hey, guys, next year, you have a budget 20% figuratively speaking, right? 20% lesser. Go figure it out with the less salaries. But never mind, we expected 20% more productivity with all the AI help. So go find the AI solutions, adjust your processes toward that so you can deliver to our expectation. Yeah, I don't know if you see different. You're always talking to the executive. I know that you have an upper level consultant.
Yeah. So now my observations are aligned with that. I think there's a couple of dynamics here that we're still trying to. We're still in the early stages. We're at to figure out what's going on. One of the things I think is impressive, and this is going to get into the weeds a bit, is that a lot of very sophisticated, mature organizations, especially in like financial services, they're not taking their AI budgets out of cash flow. They're not saying, how are we going to spend what we earned in the past 12 months? They're actually looking at repurposing their reserves, right? So monies that they've had for rainy days, they are doubling down on this. So this is a very strong indication that they really, 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 really do mean it. You know, that's going to be interesting. We also have a FOMO factor, fear of missing out, that's going on. And it's kind of hard to tell when somebody's jumping in the deep end of the pool because they think it's a good idea, or they're jumping in the deep end of the pool because they think somebody's chasing them. You know, these dynamics are often hard to figure out. And we've seen it with the adoption of the internet. We saw it with the adoption of the web, right? We've seen it with other forms of technology adoption. this one seems to be less crazy than we've seen in other times. Maybe having been through it too many times, it just doesn't feel as chaotic. I don't know, but it's the dynamics and the industry are going to work themselves out. But it's very, very clear. AI, if you're in technology and you have anything to do touching with software, you're going to be disrupted. The question is only how.
Rex Studio still records full business process videos, but now it also captures every mouse click and keystroke, along with optional screenshots and user comments. Starting a recording is as simple as one click. Just follow the steps of your process. The floating toolbar lets you capture snapshots, add comments, pause, resume, or even narrate while recording. Every interaction with the application under test is documented. Video, actions, and narration, all in sync. You can also use handy hotkeys for instant access to key recording features. After recording, use Rex Studio to review and refine. Play back the video, manage comments, capture views from any frame, and inspect all recorded events.
I wanted to ask you, we didn't chat about it in the past, but I think it's a good place to ask you this question. What I see on the market, to be honest, and I handle all the opportunities myself, basically, to a certain degree, right? And with the whole pressure of productivity delivery to improve using trying to catch up with the AI speed of information, make sense? Corporations still guarding vendors to be onboarded. So that when we go to the opportunity, one of the biggest challenges of any manager, before they even get into evaluation, it's to get you on the vendor list, because the corporation have these drastic regulations about vendor onboarding. And the problem that we see, even the managers need the technology. And that's not only for me. I'm pretty sure for any other of my competitors or any other technologists in general on the market, the same story. They're not able to move very fast with that, because the average onboarding and sourcing take about 90 days. Exactly. Makes sense? So what do you take on that? How our enterprise in the States predominantly gonna solve it?
All right. So let me give you a couple parts of the answer. First of all, what I've known from dealing with executives for many, many years, that usually one call or one email kind of takes care of the entire process, right?
Well, if they play golf with you, they recognize your name, right? So again,
I had an incident many years ago that put me it almost floored me. I got off the phone with an executive at Time Warner. We agreed to do some work. I get a call from one of his folks not too long ago, and asking me a pile of questions. I'd have the answers in front of me, and they told me very flat out, said, I have an SVP telling me I can't go home until you're set up in my system.
Well, so, Alex, they like you there. That's one of the cases. I'm talking about general trend, not just. Right. I'm a special ops guy. I know how to bypass the steps, so no problem. I got you there. I'm talking about everybody, normal people, not just.
I'm trying to tell you the story here for a reason. Right? So you can subvert these processes when there's demand. And I've seen that happen because of interest in AI, right? So you see that happening. The other part of it is the foundational flaw that I deal with a lot around third-party risk management and AI governance in this particular space is they try to do it brute force, and they try to treat all vendors as equal. I have 5,000 vendors. I have 10 people. I can do 5 vendors a week. I got 10 people. I could do 50 vendors a week. It's going to take, 70? That's going to take 70 weeks, a year and a half to clear out our backlog. That is totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. You need to organizations need to determine a stack ranking of, if you're doing third-party risk management, what's the risk level and what level of due diligence you apply to it. If you're working on AI, it's similar. And by the way, this is one of the things the EU AI Act does really, really well. It stacks out use cases by risk level. It goes from anywhere from we don't care, like video games, to don't even think about it, right? And the amount of guardrails and the due diligence you do on each of those levels changes. We need to do the same thing around vendor acquisition and adoption. One of the things that I recommend is organizations create categorize those use cases. And if you fit into one of the use cases that's considered lower risk and you're using pre-approved tools, right? You don't need a blessing to go and pursue it. You need to inform us, keep us informed, invite us to all the design reviews, keep us aware of what's going on. But the vendor community is no longer a gate in the process. You've got all these kind of pre-approvals done. And what that does is, for the vendor folks, they could do their more robust due diligence on the ones that are truly sensitive for one reason or another. The other thought to think about is a lot of product vendors have come out with third-party risk management systems using AI to do just this, right? Auto-populate forms, do the whole manual process so it's not a person emailing back and forth, pulling information from public databases instead of asking the third party to provide the information for the 27th time. Right? I don't know about you, but I've had to fill out paperwork that went on forever, and it's like every third page.
I have a designated team that does it even today. For me.
Yeah, but I've been handed paperwork that, a large stack of paperwork, and it seems like every third page I'm putting in my name, my address, my phone number, blah, 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 blah. So you see tools coming out there, and a lot of them are AI based. They pre-populate that before even
we're using ZAPTEST for that. We're RPA tool with us.
There you go.
Are you really?
But, yeah. We automate everything from soup to nuts. Listen, I mean,
there you go.
Yeah, but the point is what I wanted to say. I believe that we're going to be better if we're going to automate all this clerical kind of sourcing processes with AI. When I'm not talking to the human that's using their judgment to decide right from wrong, right, based on their understanding. But we have a machine that receives the information, process in a matter of seconds the way the ChatGPT works per se, right, and gives you instantaneous answer, and we're moving faster with the process.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's two things to remember there, right? And, machines move at machine speeds, humans move at human speeds. By just eliminating the asynchronous delays that happen with emailing forms back and forth, you're going to get a lot more benefit. The other thing to remember, good ideas are usually behind 3 or 4 bad ones. So we're going to have to expect, some stumbling along the way. But as long as nobody gets hurt, and frankly, a lot of the stumbling we see is funny, right? I don't know about you, but when I saw that was the airline in Canada gave away a $500 airline ticket for $50, I thought that was funny. And, the airline's going to fix it. $450 is a great learning experience. Or what was it? The chatbot in New York City that was poorly trained and kind of influenced by some of the users to actually recommend committing crimes to some of the customers. Right. Oh, we recommend you break the law. So what did they do? They used it as a learning experience and fixed it. Nobody broke the law. Nobody got hurt. So we're going to have to expect this kind of stumbling around. And as long as you address it and you fix it and you put a smile on your face when some stupid stuff happens, we'll be fine. Transitions always suck, though.
Yeah. For older guys, all of us, you guys are doom and gloom, though, which is interesting. You would think older people would be more like back in my day, but it seems younger people are like
Joe,
All
we're
panic.
going to be living till 150 to 100 years old.
You are. I don't know about me.
I'm still in my 20s and 30s in my mind.
Right.
So I'm very optimistic.
All right. So it's going to be Alex Zap, cockroaches,
Yes.
Dolly Parton, and
No.
what's his name from Rolling Stones?
Keith Richards.
Keith Richards.
Right.
Right. So in 100 years, they're going to hey, do you remember that video we did?
I can see that.
No, what I really think, and I'm serious about it, we're going to be moving into the cyborgs. We're going to be injecting the chips in the head. So it's maybe injection, something that will help us to.
It's only
will help us to comprehend the information in our bodies instead of looking on the phone or having in the glasses. We're eventually going to do nanotechnological improvements on the human bodies, because I don't see any other ways for us to protect human conscious, working against the AI, basically in general.
Yeah. So Joe, I think that's only a matter of time, and we're seeing some fragments of it, especially with people that are severely disabled or
right,
and been in some really traumatic accidents. But Joe, I think one of the things that's different right now that I've seen is we have had so many dystopic movies about AI. I think it's top of mind, and people are more conscious about this. What I've seen with a lot of these AI tools and these AI models, they're building safety and security in from the very early stages, which is something we don't usually see around technology, right? Now, are we 100% perfect? No, we can't turn on a lot of these features in the models because of performance reasons. But let me give you some example. Do you know who Lieutenant Selfridge is?
No.
First person to die in an airline accident.
Wow.
Orville Wright was the pilot.
No, really?
You can look it up. It might have been Wilbur, but I'm pretty
gotcha.
Right. So Orville Wright was the pilot. They crashed. Lieutenant Selfridge died. That didn't stop us. What did we do? Unfortunately, somebody died, but we learned from it. Right now, airline, while you may not believe it watching the news someday, is actually is probably the safest form of travel. You're probably at lower risk jumping on an airline than you are waking up in the morning. Now, but these things happen. There's usually some very bad stuff. Look at all the stuff that Russia and the US, the former Soviet Union and the United States went through in the space programs.
Right.
Lots of people died, lots of accidents.
Right.
We don't talk about that, but we learn from it,
Right.
And there's lots of examples of that. I saw some stats about when automobiles first came out. Oh my God, the amount of people getting killed was horrendous. I didn't realize, but in major cities, they had trains, horses, cars, and people all occupying the same space. That is ripe for disaster. But we learned, we figure it out. Now the biggest issue is not the vehicles themselves, but, distracted driving.
All right, guys, let's wrap it up. From chips in our heads, let's, any final takes? We'll start with Alex Sharp, and then we'll ask Mr. Zap himself.
Oh, chips in the head. That's kind of an idea. Yeah. Parting thought. I think we're on a fantastic journey. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. You talked about the dystopic. I tend to think Star Wars, Star Trek, Jetsons more than Space Odyssey, Blade Runner, those kind of movies. I can only live in a world that's hopeful, and I can only believe in a God who dances.
Amen.
So anything else, not interested.
Love it.
Exciting times.
Yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to take a look at ZAPTEST and on the professional side. Yeah, so we have fantastic technology. It's not because I'm inventing that and I'm pushing it. Indeed, I have two industry recognized professionals with me that I'm speaking in front of them. And I encourage you to take a look at that. Give us a chance to show you how it's works. We offer 6 months, no cost, a proof of concept, so you don't need to contribute anything financially. You can disengage within the 6 months if you don't like it. But we're so certain that this is something that's going to change the way you do automation, not just for testing, for RPA. You can do a lot of things that's going to enormously improve your productivity as a company.
Yeah, I would double down on that. There is no downside in looking at ZAP. There's a lot of downside in not looking at ZAP.
Thank you. It's valuable.
At the very least, take an hour, get a demo. Personally, your world is going to change. It can't hurt to. There is absolutely no downside about bringing a tool in-house and working with it to understand what's going on in the industry and generate some ideas and be able to talk intelligently about it. Because it's only a matter of time before management comes to you and say, what are you doing about? Better have an answer.
Why are all these tests failing again?
No code? No problem. One click empowers your manual testers. Automate anything. No code needed. Just zap it. Start your no-code journey today. ZAPTEST.AI.
And as always, be happy and let's zap.